Hello, everyone. I am Brady Briggs here for another episode of the Combat Logic. And today's video, I've gotten the idea from Facebook because everybody and their mom wants to compare Khabib Nurmagomedov and Jose Aldo this past week. And actually, I'm pretty glad that people have started comparing them because honestly, I didn't know people admired Jose Aldo as much as they do. It's pretty awesome. So let's start out by I'm going to go down Jose Aldo's resume, then I'm going to go down Khabib's resume. I'm going to compare the two. All right. So Aldo was 10-1 when he came to the WEC back in like 2008, something like that, 2007, 2008. And the first time I watched him was in 09, and he was 4-0 at that time. So his record up to winning the belt against Mike Brown, including that fight, his opponent's records combined were 85 and 25. Okay. One of them was 26 and 12. So two notable names he beat in that time was Cub Swanson. That was the #1 contender fight. He knocked him out in 8 seconds with a flying knee. He was 13 and 2. And then his fight after that, he took the belt from Mike Brown, who had just beat Uriah Faber twice. And Uriah Faber was the fucking man back then. So yeah, and he knocked both of them out. His first 6 wins in the WEC, all knockouts, 6 straight knockouts en route to winning the belt. And actually, he is the youngest world champion in MMA history, not John Jones. John Jones was almost 24 when he beat Shogun. Jose Aldo just turned 23 when he beat Mike Brown. That's since been surpassed by Christian Lee in one championship, but nonetheless, John Jones is not the youngest champion in MMA history. After winning the belt, his opponent's records. See, this is what got me to do this piece because I added the records up and the fucking math was wrong on that meme, like as it almost always is. But his record since winning the belt up to his last title defense, okay, is 136, 29 and 1. So simplify that, it's like 14 and 3. He beat Uriah Faber in that time, who he just battered for 5 rounds. Almost got the finish in round 4. He could have got the finish with leg kicks if he really wanted to. I feel like he was being nice to Uriah. He knocked out Manny Gambarian, the Ultimate Fighter 5 finalist, and he probably would have won the Ultimate Fighter 5. He was ragdolling Nate Diaz until he got tired. I love Nate, but he probably would have won that fight. It was early to say, but whatever. Nonetheless, he beat Uriah Faber. His first title defense in the UFC was against Mark Hominick, who was 20 and 8, but was 22 and 0 as a pro kickboxer. And Jose Aldo beat him with only kickboxing. His next fight was against Kenny Florian, who Kenny still can't feel his leg in that spot to this day. 3 division title challenger, the Ultimate Fighter 1 finalist, in a weight class that he should not have ever been in. That was a huge win for Aldo. That was his most experienced opponent, perhaps maybe his best opponent to date. After that, he knocked out Chad Mendes the first time. And then he beat Frankie Edgar. Actually, he beat Mendes twice. He beat Frankie Edgar twice, who's a 3 or 4 time lightweight champion in the UFC, top 5 in 3 different divisions. He beat Chan Sung Jung. He beat Ricardo Lamas. He was a dominant fucking champion. He had 9 title defenses, 2 in the WEC, 7 in the UFC. After the title, he lost to, Conor McGregor. Then he won his second fight against Frankie Edgar, winning the interim title. He was promoted to the undisputed champion because Conor left the division. He had 2 straight losses to Max Holloway. We all thought he was done at that point. But after that, he comes out and lands like the nastiest shovel hook I've ever seen in my life against Jeremy Stephens, just folds him over like a lawn chair. Like, we'd never seen anybody do that to Stephens before. He had been finished by knockout once up at lightweight by Eve Edwards. And no one had ever done that to him before either. So to finish him with a body shot, someone as tough as Jeremy Stephens, someone as dangerous as Jeremy, that motherfucker, he was such a huge featherweight. And Aldo made it look easy. Did the same thing to Renato Moicano in his next fight. And then 3 straight defeats follow. He lost to Alexander Volkanovski, and he was just outpointed, a little outworked in that fight. He couldn't he couldn't get going. Volkanovski's defense is just too good. Yeah. Then he went down to 135, which I thought was a terrible idea. He always had such a hard time making 45. If anything, I thought he should have went up to 155. Like he tried to when he was the champion, but the UFC didn't fucking let him. Meanwhile, they let Conor do it right after he wins the belt. Actually, they let Conor go up to 170 after he wins the belt. And yeah, split decision defeat to Marlon Moraes happened after that. A fight we all know he won. Marlon Moraes is a UFC title challenger. He's a 6-time World Series of Fighting bantamweight champ. Dangerous fucking dude. Aldo beat him, but lost to him. His next fight was a title shot, a vacant title shot, because Henry Cejudo vacated it against Peter Yan, who, if this was a 3-round fight, he would have beat 29-28. He won the first round too, aside from like the last 10-15 seconds of it. He got hurt pretty badly, so he lost that round. He won the second and third rounds. He would have won that fight if it was 3 rounds, but it wasn't. He's always had endurance issues in the past. He was finished in the 5th round. But Peter Yan, he's another guy. He's kind of like Alexander Volkanovski in the sense that he doesn't do anything that particularly stands out, but his defense is just so fucking tight. He's so technically sound. Anyway, that was his 3rd straight defeat, and we thought he was done after that. Then he came out and beat Marlon Vera, which we saw a new wrinkle to his game. He'd only ever grappled in like 2 fights that I can remember. Mike Brown and Chan Sung Jung are the only fights I can really remember seeing his grappling in, unless he was taken down and out wrestled throughout the 5th round like he was against Hominick or Ricardo Lamas. But with Munoz, he just picked him apart, or I'm sorry, with Vera, he picked him apart for a couple rounds, or 1 round. He lost the second, I think it was. And then he came back and took his back and won the 3rd round with it, something we weren't used to seeing out of him. So that was very cool. And then he picks apart Pedro Munoz for 3 rounds, who's a very, very good fighter himself. So that's pretty awesome. That improved his record to 30-7. He was 25-1. So he hasn't done the best as of late, but 2 of those losses could have been wins. Well, one of them definitely should have been. And yeah, so now we're going to go to Khabib Nurmagomedov's record. And his record prior to winning the title, or his opponent's combined record prior to winning the title, rather, was 167-56. Okay, so if you remember, I said Jose Aldo's is 85-25. 85 twice is 170, 167. That's 3 off. 25 times 2 is 50. This is 56. So really, Khabib's opponents just had twice as much experience, almost exactly, on average. One of them was 26-16, Pat Healy. He had just come off a submission victory over Jim Miller. He completely mauled him and submitted him in the 3rd round. No one expected that, dude. Like, that hadn't happened to Jim Miller before. Ben Henderson was the only guy to really maul him like that. And Nate Diaz submitted him. But, yeah, Pat Healy really dominated him. No one expected that. And, Khabib mauled him. And then the other one that didn't have a great record was 17-10 coming in, Michael Johnson, who he was coming off a KO victory over Dustin Poirier. Okay. And he also had 2 other top 5 wins, Edson Barboza and Tony Ferguson. Both those guys, all 3 of those guys, one still is, were in the top 5 of lightweight for years and years. So he doesn't have a great record, but dude, Michael Johnson is one of those guys that just never really fulfilled his potential. He can beat just about anybody on any given night. Not to mention, look at those 4 fights he had in a row, like Nate Diaz, fucking Dustin Poirier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje. Those were 4 straight fights for him. Like, it's surprising he won one of them. Nonetheless, in that time, he also, the elite opponents he beat in that time were Michael Johnson, Rafael dos Anjos, who was just coming off a win over Donald Cerrone, and Edson Barboza, who was 19-4 coming in. Was ranked in the top 5 at the time. Since winning the belt, his opponents' combined records are 68-10. Conor McGregor, he was 21-3 coming in, I think. Dustin Poirier was 25-5, and Gaethje was 22-2. Conor was the champion, the returning champion technically, because he never lost his belt in a fight. He had to vacate it. Dustin Poirier was the interim champion. Justin Gaethje was the interim champion. He finished all three of them. That's unrealistically impressive because we've been seeing him get better and better as he progressed. And he knew Justin Gaethje's family was at that fight at UFC 254, I think it was. He knew his family was at that fight. Not to mention, those leg kicks are really starting to hurt him. So what did we see out of it? A second round finish. He finished him so easily. That was the best lightweight we have ever seen in the sport. I would argue that the two best lightweights we've ever seen, like the two best nights of lightweights, Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez and Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. The two best lightweights we've ever seen, two best lightweight performances we've ever seen. Khabib went out on top, as we all know, last year, almost a year ago, at 29-0. But here's the thing. We never got to see a lot of those fights. We never got to see him fight Tony Ferguson. You know, they were scheduled to fight 5 fucking times. We never got to see it. Like, if the UFC would have fucked off with the Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson fight and just waited until September to rebook Tony and Khabib, we could have saw that fight. Not to mention, if they wouldn't have stripped Tony and had him fight him at UFC 229, they were both healthy, both made the walk that night. Tony beat Pettis and fucking Khabib beat Conor. They should have matched them up, but they didn't. We never got to see that fight. It's so sad. And then, let's see. He was also scheduled to fight Donald Cerrone 3 times, who could have been a very dangerous matchup for him. He's like one of the best grapplers, offensive grapplers we've ever seen in the sport, not to mention he's a 28-0 pro kickboxer. And he was also supposed to fight Gilbert Melendez, who's a multi-time Strikeforce lightweight champ. He was really like the uncrowned champ for a while there because everybody thought he beat Ben Henderson in his UFC debut for the title. Nonetheless, but the same thing could be said about Jose Aldo in this sense, because he too pulled out of a good amount of fights. He was supposed to fight Eric Koch twice, who was a very promising up-and-coming featherweight at the time. Josh Grisby, he might have even been more promising at the time. Like, Josh Grisby was the fucking man back in the day. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but this dude, he was 5'11", man. He's like the size of an average featherweight these days. He was so fucking big back then for a featherweight, man, and he was dangerous. Like, he had decent striking. He could submit you. He was 14-1 at his best with 13 finishes, 4-0 in the WEC. And Aldo pulled out of the fight. Grisby took a fight against Dustin Poirier, an unproven Dustin Poirier, and got battered for 3 rounds. And he hadn't won a fight since. I think he lost 3 more after that or 4 more after that. And then he went to prison for beating the shit out of his wife and threatening her while he was incarcerated, training his pit bull to attack her. He's a real piece of work. Yeah, I didn't expect his future to go the way it did. But yeah, he was supposed to fight him. He was supposed to fight Koch. He was supposed to fight Anthony Pettis, okay? But he didn't. Pettis had to end up fighting Max Holloway for the interim belt because Jose Aldo pulled out. And Conor. He was supposed to fight Conor half a year sooner, but he pulled out with a broken rib. Conor fought Mendez. The same could be said for Aldo. Like, he pulled out of a lot of fights too. But at least we've seen him fight all of these guys. Well, not all of these guys. At least we've seen him fight most of these guys that he should have. He's stuck around, dude. And if Khabib stuck around, chances are he would have caught an L here or there too. Like, lightweight is such a stacked weight class, and chances are he wouldn't have too. He's so fucking dominant. He's arguably, and I mean arguably, lost 2 rounds. Okay, he won that first round against Justin Gaethje. I don't know who the fuck would ever score that for Justin Gaethje. Justin did not win that first round. And Conor, okay, I guess you could say he took round 3 because he looked a little better and he laid off the wrestling. That was still a pretty even round. All right, he's as dominant as a fighter as we've ever seen, aside from maybe Georges St. Pierre. And yeah, Georges St. Pierre has lost twice, but he avenged only both of those losses. He avenged the one to the better fighter twice. So I think that's the closest thing you can get to undefeated. And he also fought everybody, didn't pull out. So point being, like, if Khabib would have stuck around, like, we need to see him fight Michael Chandler, a 6-time Bellator lightweight champ. We need to see him fight Charles Oliveira, like someone who's really brought his striking to the next level. He actually believes in it now, and he's the most dangerous grappler at 155, and Khabib, or he would be. So there's just some fight, and going up to welterweight too. He was a welterweight before he was in the UFC. Jose Aldo went down a weight class after a while, but he tried to go up, as I mentioned previously. He tried. The UFC did not let him. But yeah, there's a lot of grapplers at 170 that Khabib would not really give up much size to. And I mean, you give up size to Usman, but the other ones, like, I don't think he would give up much size to him, and he's just as good, if not better. It would have been cool. I don't hate on him for that, for staying at lightweight, but I at least wish he would have stuck around a little longer. COVID took his dad away from us, though, and him, more importantly. So it makes sense. But I think I don't really see how we need to put one of these talents above the other. Like, I think we could just agree that they're both legends. Okay, they're both divisional goats. Like, Khabib is the lightweight goat. Aldo's the featherweight goat. They both pulled out a bunch of times. Aldo has 7 losses. But you know, like I said, he stuck around. Khabib did not. And he's still beating some of the best in the world today. No, yeah, I think we should just both, or we should all agree that these guys are divisional goats, and we should leave it at that. But it's like, I'm really glad this topic came up, because Aldo really does deserve to be mentioned, and no one ever does anymore. Like, now that this has happened, now that people are comparing the two, I see a lot of people defending Jose Aldo, and it's so cool. But another thing I want to add before I wrap this up is a lot of people are saying Jose Aldo has evolved. They're saying that he has added new wrinkles to his game, and that's like the furthest thing from the truth. If anything, he's devolved a little bit, because he doesn't fucking throw leg kicks as much as he used to. He still throws his punches, and he still throws his knees. He doesn't really throw leg kicks like he used to, though. And honestly, people are saying, oh, he's shovel hooking now. He's hitting to the body. He's doing, like, he's always done that. He's always done that. Go watch his fight with Ricardo Lamas. Go watch his fight with Uriah Faber. He landed so many shovel hook leg kick combinations in those fights. Like, he's always done that. He's always done that. That's not a new thing. Go watch his old fights. Like, he hasn't changed at all. He's still, I mean, in 3-round fights, I'd say, aside from his last fight and his fight with Marias, in 3-round fights, he seems to go for it a little more, because he's not as worried about getting tired. But he hasn't changed. He's the same fighter. He's just as good as he was before, after taking all those beatings, which is pretty surprising. But the game has caught up a little bit, and yeah, man, he's the same fighter. He's a legend, as is Khabib. What do y'all think? Who do you think is better? Do you think that they deserve to just be considered divisional goats? Do you think one's above the other? What do y'all think? I appreciate you for watching. Have a good one. Like and subscribe if you like the video.